Hello, readers. Welcome to The Adulterous Whore. I'm your host, Stacey. Today is season 2, episode 23 of my conspiracy theory with Stacey. I have a real love for conspiracy theories, so I read a fair amount of nonfiction books that challenge the status quo of the official stories that they put in the media of big things that have happened in media over, it doesn't even matter how many years. I don't care how old the conspiracy is. Now, I'm not saying that I believe every conspiracy, but I find that there is often no smoke without fire. So you have to ask yourself, why are we not getting the full story? Why are they trimming the fat off? It's so that it's easier for us to digest. So I read a lot of books that will give us the information that has been scraped out and helps us to form actual opinions on the things that happen opposed to the official narrative. Now, I really missed an opportunity because yesterday obviously was 9/11, and it was probably one of the most tragic days in our world's history in my lifetime, because I was 20 years old when it happened. I was sitting in a call center. I worked selling vacations to people over 50, and I was in the call center. And they put the TV up when it all started to happen. We had customers in the States, so we had a lot of families calling us, worried about their loved ones on that day. It was pretty traumatic to watch, and it was pretty traumatic hearing the fear in people's voices. But over the years, I have watched a lot of documentaries. I've read a lot of information. I use Substack a lot. I go and have a look at what people have said, the evidence they provide. And I should have done one of my favorite books on 9/11 today, but I hadn't prepared for that. I really wasn't even thinking about it, which is the first time in a very long time that my mind wasn't on the run up to 9/11. So that was really intriguing for me. But today I decided to do Tom O'Neill's Chaos. Now, it's Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. This book, the reason I picked it was because it actually got turned into a Netflix documentary. And I didn't really know very much about Charles Manson because I really don't have any interest in serial killers. I'm not a true crime person. So I knew what I knew from things that I had seen on TV or things that people had said. And that was pretty much the extent of my knowledge. I saw the documentary was on Netflix and I watched it and I'm like, there's some really massive plot holes in this documentary, meaning that the official narrative, the official story of Charles Manson and the book Helter Skelter was pretty much proven to be fabricated from the get-go. They tried to take a very messy situation and tried to give you a reason to make it so believable that the heinous act needed a believable story for humans to be able to accept it. And I kind of thought that was really interesting. Tom O'Neill is not a conspiracy theorist, okay? This is the first thing I want to mention. So when I started to read his book, I took that in mind, that this is a man, a journalist, who wanted the truth. He wasn't looking to sensationalize what had happened. He wasn't looking to sell books. He was looking for the truth. And he says it more than one occasion in the book that he isn't a conspiracy theorist. He just wanted to get to the bottom of the truth. So what happened was he was working for a publication and they wanted to do a fairly large story on the anniversary of the Manson murders. So he starts to dig. Well, the more he digs, the more he realizes that the book written by prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi, the book he wrote called Helter Skelter, was a big fat piece of crap. It was all pretty much lies. He tried to say that the reason that Manson did all these things was it was racially motivated. They were trying to pin the murders on the Black Panthers. There was a lot of upheaval where they were looking for rights back then. So that was a key thing to note, was they tried to use political turmoil at a time to explain away something heinous that happened. O'Neill argues that the Helter Skelter motive was literally used to sell books. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can kind of see that because he got the jump on anyone else in writing about what happened because he was obviously the prosecutor at the time. So he had inside knowledge, but it was lies. Like if you read his book, you're going to see that there is nothing in there to substantiate that Helter Skelter, the book, is true even in the slightest. But it was accepted as the official narrative because it was easier. Now, he literally spends the whole book talking about the discrepancies, and he proves these things with evidence. Okay, so he's not just saying these things for the sake of saying these things. He will show you, and he puts it all together in such a way that if you don't see what really happened, there is no helping you. I am so sorry. So the murders were framed as a random act of madness, but he provides evidence to suggest a more specific motive. I don't know how much of this I actually believe, but it certainly seems as though there was a man called Trevor Melcher, and he was a record producer. And the house where Sharon Tate was living in, where she was unalive, that's where he was living beforehand. So they moved in after he moved out, and they didn't know if it was them sending a message. Now, there's no evidence to suggest that because he had been gone for about 4 months, I think I read in the book. You're telling me that they didn't know he'd moved? Like, it seems that's, to me, I don't believe that. I'm not saying that it's not true. What I'm saying is that I'm not really feeling that vibe myself. And he never says that that's what's happened. He just explains that somebody that had upset Manson, he was supposed to give him a record deal and renegated on it. So I don't know. It was an interesting piece of information that the book includes. The biggest thing for me was the law enforcement negligence and the cover up. Now, Manson was a career criminal. He'd spent most of his life in jail, most of his adult life in jail, and even some time as in his teen years, I think I read as well. He was on probation, and he was arrested for crimes on multiple occasions and just let go. Now, that doesn't happen, okay? If you have a probation officer and you commit any crime, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be jaywalking. They're going to put your ass back in jail. But for some reason, he never did any more time after that point. So that was really, really strange. And the same thing with his followers. There was one of the girls, I can't remember her name now. She was arrested and she was on probation. She was cleaning up her life. Then she joins like Charlie's cult. And somehow she did something in another state and they just let her go too. And she was told that she'd go back to jail and serve her time. So why? Why were the police, why were the judicial system so lenient on Manson and his followers? It's really strange because it's not just one incident. This book will name several and it's bizarre. It was, oh my God, they were arrested like dozens of times. And they should have all been back in jail. And I don't understand why they weren't. Manson had a parole officer called Roger Smith, and he consistently ignored the violations and kept Manson from being sent back to jail. Why? And he also, when Manson did go to jail at one point, like he was arrested, he took care of Manson's son, his baby. Something is really fishy, and I don't care what you say, okay? Police botched all of it. All of it was botched, in my personal opinion. Even the investigation into the murders, it was plagued with missteps. Failure to connect the crimes to the Manson family. I'm not being funny, but they were looking elsewhere. If you look at the evidence, because he lays it out it's quite well laid out, you can see that it was clearly them. How come they weren't talked to about this? So there was some deliberate cover up. I don't understand why, but maybe this is why. There was an operation back in the late 60s and early 70s called Operation Chaos. And it literally talks about how the FBI and the CIA had secret programs during the time in California, and they were there to disrupt left movements. So the Black Panthers, anything that was going against what they were about back then. So what they did was they had created these operations to cause the environment to be more violent, to foment and discredit the counterculture movement. Things like pinning murder on the Black Panthers, right? Can you imagine what that would have done to the civil rights movement had that actually had worked? And they literally had agents, they found informants to go and join these organizations to disrupt them from the inside out. Now, that to me makes a lot of sense because think about the logic here. The CIA is well known for infiltrating and causing problems from within and then wiping their hands clean, pretending they had nothing to do with it. And if you bother to go look online, you will see so many CIA documents that have been declassified and you'll see what they got up to. I'm sorry, it's all out there. You want to choose to not believe that, that's really up to you. But the CIA admits it themselves. So really, you sound really stupid. So don't do that. And the biggest one for me, the CIA mind control experiments. Now, I know everyone's like, MK Ultra anti-mechanistic, blah, blah, blah. No, it didn't, because guess what? We have court cases right now being heard in Canada where MK Ultra was still being used in the 80s. So, F off. But this book talks about the potential links between Manson and the government-backed mind control experiments, such as MK Ultra. He literally talks about the theories that Manson and his followers were influenced by or involved with figures like Louis Jolyon West, and he was a psychiatrist that was linked to the MK Ultra mind control program during that time. That was really intriguing to me. There's also a section in the book that talks about how they had rats and they were giving them drugs, different kinds of drugs, like amphetamines was a big one. And then they would leave them alone in their separate cages and they weren't moving. They were just, zonked right out. When they jacked them all up on amphetamines and put all the rats in the same space, they became violent. They were attacking each other, biting each other, eating each other. It was pretty horrific. So they talk about how LSD was used to drug these people and then make them do things they wouldn't normally do. And I don't know if you've ever watched the interviews with the women afterwards, that they still fully believed in what they had done. Like it was like they've been brainwashed. I'm sorry, I've seen the video footage. I think that the drug thing is a big thing here. CIA was literally testing this out on people who normally wouldn't do these things to see if they could make them do these things. So they did that Stanford project, right? Where they had volunteers and they put some of them as prisoners and some of them as guards. And they literally proved that human psyche, when you're put into a role, that you'll do things you wouldn't normally do. Like they were doing some pretty horrific things to the prisoners. The guards were. And they weren't the kind of people that would normally like torture people, but they felt that was what they were supposed to do. No one told them what to do. They just did it, okay? Now, it has been shown that this was flawed, the Stanford, but that just shows you that being put in the right environment, that people will do things that they're not supposed to do. Now, mix in some drugs with that because Charles Manson was starving these people, pumping them full of drugs. They were selling themselves with sex. I think that this is a very good theory that Charles Manson was being funded to do these things in a working environment, taking these women, because he was ugly as sin. You must have seen pictures of Charles Manson. He's ugly as sin. And those were beautiful young girls. O'Neill actually uncovered a web of connections between Manson's associates and powerful figures in Hollywood. And these people work deliberately to hide their ties to Manson and cover up details of events to protect their own reputations. And that goes into in a lot of detail in the book. And I was actually quite surprised how far his little web of whatnots had managed to get. It was intriguing, really intriguing. And he paints this cultural breakdown of the 1960s Hollywood counterculture where drugs, sex, societal anxieties created a very volatile atmosphere. Manson literally manipulated his followers with drugs. LSD was his drug of choice, and he used it to control them. But how would he have known about this? This man was a career criminal. He had no skills in anything. They said he was very charming. I've seen the videos of this man talk. He gave me the fucking creeps. So, I don't know. It's interesting. It's really interesting. His whole thesis is that Charles Manson was connected to the CIA mind control experiments, particularly the MK Ultra one, the domestic surveillance operation called Chaos. Now, I truly believe this because I honestly think that our government spends a lot of their time, all of the government spend a lot of their time spying on its people, making sure that they squash dissent, that you do what you're told, you don't ask questions, you pay your taxes, and you be a good little subservient beast. Now, what they don't like is when there are groups who start to get organized, kind of like Martin Luther King. He was actually seen as a radical and a danger to the American people. They thought Martin Luther King might end up getting a lot of people killed. In the end, he only really got himself killed. But the point is that they infiltrated his groups. They put people in there to keep an eye on him. So, and this is all well documented. This is not news. This is not stranger than fiction. This is the truth. Now, if you go have a look online, you'll see that. But he literally begins his research after he found evidence of a cover-up behind the official story of the murders. And this literally had him examining the potential surveillance of Manson by intelligence officers because they were watching him. They didn't just leave him alone. That he was being watched a lot. And they wanted to use Operation Chaos to infiltrate and disrupt anti-war and counterculture movements. I honestly think that Charles Manson was an experiment, and I think it worked really, really well. The problem is it got very public because they tried to cover up that he had any involvement in these murders. They did. They tried really, really hard. And the book really details that in a lot of ways with a lot of evidence. And honestly, I was freaking mind blown because I just thought that Charles Manson was, I thought that he was just a cult leader and that he was just sending these people out to do things he didn't want to get his hands dirty. But he got his hands dirty a lot, just so you know. He didn't just sit on the sidelines and make people kill for him. He did a lot of stuff himself. So it wasn't really about that. And this book really opened my eyes to some of the things that I had missed from the official narrative. And I always recommend don't always trust the official narrative until you have done your own research, because I think that is imperative in the age that we live in today, is that you don't know if you're being given the whole truth, a portion of the truth, or a load up made of bullshit to make you move on to the next thing. And then it talks about the Dr. Lewis West. He was a psychiatrist that was involved during MK Ultra, and he literally experimented with hypnosis and MK Ultra mind control. Now, he had an office at the free clinic where Charles Manson used to take all his girls in for free medical treatment for STDs and I think like unwanted pregnancies. Now, ask yourself, is that a coincidence? Did he see this man? Why were they getting free medical care? Why would this doctor have an office in a free clinic? What's the stuff whirling around in Stacey's brain while she was reading this? And then also raising the questions about why Manson's parole officer was so lenient with him. There were so many violations before the 1969 murders. This could have saved Sharon Tate's life. Had this man done his job properly one time, he would have been behind bars. If this man had done his job at all, Charles Manson wouldn't have done any of the stuff that he went on to do. Yeah, you feel me, bro? He had lax supervision. He wasn't supposed to leave. And there was this whole part documented that Manson went to Mexico. He left the US. He's not supposed to do that. There's a parole violation right there. And his parole officer allowed it, signed off on the paperwork. Why? Why the fuck would you do that? That makes no sense. You're a parole officer, motherfucker. What the hell were you thinking? And the biggest part of the book, too, is talking about how Helter Skelter was fabricated, right? And honestly, I don't think this was anything about race. It didn't seem like Manson wasn't out there hating on Black people all the time. He wasn't like chanting any of that stuff. He wanted a music career. That's the whole book kind of explains to you that he thought he could be a musician and he was looking for an in the music industry. It was really freaking weird. Really weird. Yeah. So Charles Manson had dealings with the drummer from the Beach Boys. So, yeah, I don't know. This book kind of made me go, what? He wrote this book for years. He had a publisher ready. He kept missing deadlines. He was going to co-write it with somebody else. He was taking too long. They left the project. Like, it took him ages to write this book because he was looking for the truth. Now, honestly, this book is quite terrifying if you think about it, because there were so many holes in the investigation. The police, he went to talk to these police officers and they were like, oh, yeah, we'll talk to you. And then something happened between him talking to them on the phone and him getting down there. They stonewalled him hard. And then they were like, yeah, we'll do this and we'll go talk to these people. And they never did. And then when he went to talk to the main person who opened the investigation again, she closed it. No talking to him, no nothing. So something or somebody clearly put the screws to these people and they shut that shit down. Toot sweet sister. Now, if you don't want to read the book, I suggest the Errol Morris documentary on Netflix, because he takes the book and pieces it out into a more linear format as far as I'm concerned, because Tom O'Neill takes the book in the order that he was investigating it. So the things that he was finding as he found them, whereas this documentary went with a more timeline fashion, which I kind of appreciated. After I read the book again, I went back and rewatched the documentary. And yeah, it was insane. The whole handling of this thing was wrong from the start. Somebody was paying for this. Somebody was doing this. Where the hell was he getting all these drugs from? Because they were like hippie bums. They were squatting. And most of the time they didn't eat and Yeah, so where the fuck did all these drugs come from? Where did the money for the drugs come from? I don't know. Whether or not it's true is hard to say because obviously the CIA is not admitting that they did any of these things. The FBI is not admitting to have done any of these things, but lots of things went missing. There was a lot of more questions asked that couldn't be answered. And a lot of people have passed away as well, which really does not help. But all in all, it was a really intriguing mystery. And it really boils down to, do you believe that Charles Manson was just a racist and he wanted to start a race war by murdering people? Why Sharon Tate? Why did he kill any of the people that he killed? Why didn't he kill cops instead and make it look like the Black Panthers did it? There's some huge things that I don't understand. And this book doesn't really go into it, but Roman Polsky, who was Sharon Tate's husband, he was very abusive. And some of the things that he did after she was murdered don't sit quite right with me. And there was some links to suggest that he wanted her dead. He wanted her gone. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm a big conspiracy theorist. I love when things ask as many questions as it answers because it really gets my little cogs turning. Now, this is the only book I could find that kind of debunks most of the official story of Manson and his followers, but there aren't really any other ones that I could find. So I can't even send you on a new reading mission. But I highly recommend this book if you're curious as to what they hid in the official story about Manson. And if you have any curiosities for MK Ultra, it's another one that I'm going to be doing a book on. Because one of the things that I got into a slightly heated debate with somebody in one of my book groups when we were talking about nonfiction conspiracy books. And she turned around and said, well, MK Ultra failed. They stopped doing it in the 60s, which was wrong because you only have to Google Canada right now to know that it was still happening here in Ontario, I think it was, in the 80s. You might want to say these things, but at least have some facts because that's in our news right now that this was still going on decades later. So never believe the first thing you are told. Always seek the truth. That's kind of my opinion. And my love of conspiracy, I think, started with X-Files and Fox Mulder. So showing my age a little bit there, but you should always check and fact check again because there are a million things that you're not being told, and a story in a newspaper is not going to cut it. But if you like conspiracies like me, I think the next one I'm going to do is on JFK. I will still do 9/11. There's a couple of books I want to do, and I don't know if I should spread them out or do them together or whatnot. And I'm already done the JFK one. So I think I'm going to do that one next. It's Read Like Rory next Friday. So I think I'm doing The Diary of a Young by Anne Frank because I've already done that book and it's time for you to hear what I thought about that because that was weeks ago that I read it. So about time. And somebody asked me, they're like, oh, are you watching the Gilmore Girls then? Because you're doing the Read Like Rory thing. And yeah, I'm on season 1. Well, I started that back from the beginning, which is a lot of fun. And making t-shirts. Yeah, my life's pretty full right now. But if you'd like to join me in reading any books on conspiracies, if you're a little bit of a conspiracy theorist like me, you can always send me an email, ladulterous@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at ladulteroushorror. You can follow me on TikTok at ladulterous. I have my book merch store, which is bookaloriandesigns.com. Or you can go to Etsy and find Bookalorian Designs as well. I will be bringing t-shirts back. I found a really good source for the shirts. I'm trying to find a vinyl that I like, an HTV vinyl to go on the front of shirts because I sublimate as well, but I want to do both. That does not, because I made this one yesterday and it came in a roll and it wouldn't freaking sit flat. No matter what I did to it, I was like, it was stuck on my face, stuck on my arm. Like, because I used to buy the vinyl in 12 by 12 sheets. But this I got from Amazon, so I think I have to resource that. So that was going to be a pain in my freaking ass. But I'm having a lot of fun, and you'll be able to see all my Halloween bookmarks and grab yourself some Halloween stuff for your readings. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next Tuesday, I'm going to be doing my Halloween Rex, what I'm going to be reading and what I have already read for horror. On the 23rd, I won't be recording because I'm having an operation that day. It's just a day surgery. I'll be in and out, but I might miss Friday as well. I don't think there'll be a Toppling TBR episode that week either. I think I'm just going to take the week off and then we'll start again fresh the following week. So if you realize that there is a gap missing an episode, that's why. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode. I know I am loving the deep dives into nonfiction conspiracies. I'm having a lot of fun with that. You can do any buddy read with me that you like. Just send me an email. Have the reading weekend that you deserve, and you'll see me tomorrow on the Toppling TBR doing our deep dive on Throne of Glass. It's Empire of Storms Part 1. Have a great rest of your day, readers. Take care.